Erin Burniston, the designer of Pop It Ups products for Elizabeth Craft Designs. And today I'll be teaching how to make this. A pop-up Christmas trees card with charms hanging in some of the trees. Our second designer challenge for November 2016 is to use one or more of the charm dies. So I'll be using number 1210, the holiday charms. I've chosen a pretty patterned paper to be my inner pop-up card. The measurements on this are 9¼ inches wide by 6 inches tall, and then I've scored it up the middle at 3 inches for folding. I'm going to end up cutting 3 of the pop stands into this piece, so I'd like to find the center, which will be at 4 5/8, and then from that first pencil line, I'm going to measure 2 1/4 in each direction to give myself 3 nicely spaced pencil lines. The pop-up die I'll be using today is number 1037, the Christmas Trees Pop Stand Set. And it comes with this little pop stand die that cuts the tabs to be able to animate the tree. So I'll start first by putting it over the top of my center pencil line. And I just want to make sure that I'm using some temporary tape to hold that in place and that my alignment nubs are right over the fold of the card. You can use any of the major die cutting machines with Pop It Ups dies. Today I'm using a Sizzix Big Shot, and I'm just going to create my normal sandwich and run it through the machine. This die does a pretty simple thing. It just cuts 2 tabs on either side of the fold in exactly the right size and position to be able to animate the Christmas tree. And now I just need to repeat that process to cut my other 2 pop stands into the card. So let's move them over the other pencil lines one at a time and cut those sets of tabs. And now I'll have 3 sets of tabs, perfect for my Christmas trees scene. I just used older papers from my stash for this card, but I did find one where I really liked the green side, and I wanted that to be green on both sides for my trees. So the way I did that is I just cut the pattern paper in half at 6 inches, and then I used the 6-inch roll of Elizabeth Craft Designs double-sided adhesive to attach those 2 halves of the paper back to back. That will make them green on both sides, perfect for my trees. The biggest tree die in the set is the only one that has a trunk built in, and it also has this fun decorative stitch line stencil feature. So I'm going in with a gel pen before taking the paper out of the die and adding all of those stitch lines to it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this process 5 more times so that I end up with 6 of these trees. I'm going to end up hanging charms in a couple of my trees, but for the center one, I'd like to go ahead and make the expanding tree just like I normally would with this die set. And for that, I'm going to need the 3 expanding tree parts. So I'm going to go ahead and cut one of each of those, and that will give me all of the pieces I need for my center tree that's going to be the expanding tree. And the first thing I want to do is add some strong adhesive on the back of the big trees, just up at the top where they will eventually attach to each other. So I'm just using my Elizabeth Craft Designs double-sided adhesive tape for that. Now I'll make the mechanical tree, and for that I'm going to need the big tree that has the slot up the middle, and I'm going to start with the small tree that also has a slot. And for that smaller tree, I want to get the notch at the bottom of the tree into the slot on the big tree, and then just pull until the notch at the top clicks into place. And from there, those 2 trees will be locked together. And you can see there that they will just swing in that opening. Okay, so now I've got these 2 trees locked together. And what I want to do is I just want to rotate the small tree until it is also lying flat, just like the big tree. And when I do that, what happens is the 2 slots now line up with each other. And it's possible to actually put the other tree through the slot on both of these trees at the same time. So that's what I want to do. I want to get the notch at the bottom of my last tree right through the slot in both trees and then notched in at the bottom. Now in this case, you won't be able to just pull it through. You will have to fold down sort of the triangle that's at the top of that notched tree. Then you're going to slide it right through the slot to the other side and unfold it. And that'll lock all 3 trees together now. And you can see that that's the little expanding tree, sort of the guts of the big tree. The next step is to attach the expanding tree to one of the tree frames. Now those 2 tree frames are identical, so it doesn't matter which one. I just want to peel up the liner at the tape that's at the top of the tree, and that's the only place that these 2 trees are going to be attached to each other. So just with that tape up at the top. And the expanding tree is just a little bit smaller than the tree frame, so you'll see a tiny little shadow when you get it attached there. And on the front, you'll see that the 2 smaller trees actually come through the frame. All of the trees will end up attached inside the card to those tabs. So I'm going to take some double-sided adhesive tape and add a piece to each one of the tabs. And for this first tree, it's going to go in the center. So I want to peel up the liner on the tabs of just my center two tabs. And my tree needs to go face down so that the tree trunk lines up with that tab. And then I'm going to fold that tab over and right onto the back of that tree trunk. So that's the easiest way to attach the trees, is to lay them face down in front of a tab and then just fold the tab over and onto the back of the trunk. On the other side, I will do the same thing. So I've got my tree frame. I'm going to put it face down in front of that tab, peel up the liner so that the tab is sticky. I'm going to fold it over and onto the back of the trunk. And now all I need to do is attach those two trees to each other using that adhesive that's up at the top of one of my trees. Now, one nice thing about pop stand cards is that you can back fold them. So when you back fold the card, what happens is it gives you a position where your pop-up is flat, but you can access it. So this is a great way to attach the two halves to each other, is to have your card back folded, and then you can really get in there and make sure that the tops of the trees are lining up, and then just press them to each other. Then when you bring the fold back to the normal position, you'll see that the expanding tree is attached now to those tabs. As the card is closed, the expanding tree will collapse down flat. My other two large trees are going to have charms hanging in them. So I've die cut two of the large snowflake charms, and I'm going to string some silver twine through the hole in the top of the charm, and then add a large jump ring onto the twine. And now I just need to tie the silver twine into a knot. That'll trap the jump ring onto the twine. And as far as where the position of the knot is, I kind of just eyed it, but basically the knot ends up being about 5/8 of an inch from the hang hole on the charm. And that 5/8 of an inch just happens to be a nice height for the snowflake to hang in the tree. And if there is excess twine above the knot, then I can go ahead and trim that off. And what I want is to pull the jump ring then up to the top so that the charm is actually hanging down from the jump ring. Now what I want to do is add some of that double-sided adhesive tape on the back of another one of my tree frames, maybe even a couple pieces, so that I've got a nice good sticky top to the back of my tree frame. And then what I want to do is sink the jump ring into that adhesive so that about half the jump ring is attached to the tree and about half is hanging down in the opening. And that should give me enough room for the knot. So basically you want that knot to be able to not get hung up in the tree, but just be able to hang from that little jump ring that is suspended down over the opening. And now I can attach this inside the card. So I'm basically doing the exact same thing. I'm just going to peel up the liner on one of the tabs. I've got my tree face down in front of it, and then I'm just going to fold that tab over and onto the back of the tree trunk. Then I take another tree, peel up the liner on that, fold over the tab, and right onto the back of the tree trunk. Now I've got these two trees opposite each other. I need to back fold the card because that makes it much easier to bring them up to each other. And then making sure that my snowflake charm is kind of out of the way. I don't want to stick that down into the adhesive. I just need to attach those two trees to each other. And now it's just a matter of repeating that exact same process to make a snowflake charm tree for the final set of tabs in my card. Now once I have all three of my big trees in there, you will notice that the bottom of the trees overlap each other. So that's going to be a great chance to actually attach those trees to each other so that the set of three trees is going to kind of move as a unit. That will give it just a little bit more stability. So first I have to decide which tree's in front, and I decided that my center tree is going to be the front tree on both sides. So I just made sure that it's overlapping the outside trees. Then I'm going to back fold the card so that I can lay it flat. And then I can just lift up the bottom of the tree, slide a little glue dot in there, a little piece of glue or tape, and then just press that to the other tree. So that'll just attach all the trees to each other. And I'm going to do that on the front and the back. And now I've got a nice unit of three trees that are all moving together. I've cut two pieces of green cardstock. Each one is 4 inches tall by 9 1/4 inches wide. And these are going to be my backer cards. So when I attach these to the pop-up card, because I have those holes where the pop stand was, I need to make sure that my adhesive actually goes on the pop-up card. And I'll just use my Elizabeth Craft Designs double-sided adhesive tape around the perimeter. And then I can just peel that up so that it's sticky line up my green cardstock right along the fold and the edges and get that pressed down. Then I just flip the card over, repeat the exact same process to be able to get the other backer card on, lined up perfectly with the one below. Anytime you're using a pop stand mechanism, you definitely want your backer card put on in 2 pieces. Never a fold in a fold, because you won't be able to open that card up fully flat again. But with 2 pieces, you can open it up fully flat. When I cut those 6 tree frames earlier, I was left with the 6 solid trees that come out of the middle. And those can be easily decorated using the decorator dies that come with the set. So there's 2 dies that will do garlands, there is a die that will do a star for the top of the tree, and there's even a die that will do a trunk for the bottom. And then that way you can make these really fun solid trees as well. And I can always backfold my card to be able to lay those trees flat for decorating. So I've decided I wanted to add some of those red enamel dots into the expanding parts of my center tree. So I can just backfold the card so that it'll lay flat and then add all of my dots to that tree. Now I'm going to take my decorated solid trees and just attach the corner of the solid tree to the corner of the outermost pop-up tree, and then it will pop up and pop down with the line of trees. And I'll just do that on both sides. And I'm a fan of attaching those just a little bit higher than the ones next to it, and that way the trunks don't become a catch point or a drag point in the card, so they actually float just a little bit above the floor. Once again, I just went stash diving to find a piece of decorator paper that I trimmed down to 3 3/4 by 9 inches. That will fit right on the front of the card, leave me a little border around. As for the rest of the decorations, pretty simple stuff. I started with some crepe ribbon in a red and decided inside the card where that needed to go so that it would line up with the seam between the papers, and then I just tied that in a knot on the front of the card. And then since this is the charmed challenge, I decided to tie a charm, another snowflake charm, using that same silver twine around the knot on the front of the card and let it hang. And then just more of my solid decorator trees, just kind of to make a nice little simple lead into the inside of the card. Then I cut another piece of ribbon that was wide enough for the card with a little extra to fold around to the back of the card and into some adhesive, and then I just cleaned that all up on the back of the card with another piece of decorator paper trimmed to the same size, 3 3/4 by 9 inches. So I chose this size, a finished card of 4 inches by 9 1/4, because it fits so perfectly inside a number 10 business envelope. And all I did to decorate my business envelope is just used a little washi tape that looks like Santa's belt around both sides of the envelope, and then I also decorated the interior flap with my leftover decorator paper. And I did add a greeting inside the card. I used the holiday clear stamps, stamping the Merry Christmas in red and green, and then just cut it out with one of the stitch circles from the Labels and Circles die set. My videos always have an associated blog post, and you get there either through the direct link that's in the About section below the YouTube video, or by clicking the little information circle in the upper right corner. You can follow me on Facebook, Karen Burniston Designer, where I post daily inspiration. If you click on the circle that has my logo in it, that will allow you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I would definitely appreciate it. I've also got a couple more videos that I think you might enjoy, so there's some direct links here, and you can always find more ideas on my blog, KarenBurniston.com. Thanks for watching.